See, how do you choose organ?
It doesn't show up.
Just put it on organ.
Want to connect honey?
No,
I never use that function.
Okay,
so
there's
Hare
the
Krishna
organs.
and welcome to our Bhakti Vrksa. We had a
Yeah, so it
gap
is
of
already on
1 month because of my
Another one.
trip to India, and some of you were
Try
with us.
electric organ, 0.5.
So we'll start with a round of introductions first. I'm Shraddha-devi Dasi from Foster City. And on my right is my husband, Rakesh Rajput, who's behind the camera.
Street organ. No,
And
accordion.
Hari Bol to all of you, and Hari Bol to those of you who are watching us online here. So we'll go in this direction. And Rakesh, you can show them.
This one again.
Hare Krishna, I'm Deepthi from San Mateo.
Hare Krishna, my name is Suman Kukreti from San Mateo as well.
Hare Krishna, my name is Shraddha-devi Dasi.
South San Francisco.
Hare Krishna, my name is Khyati. I'm from Melbourne.
Hare Krishna, I'm Banamali Das from Burlingame.
Radha Krishna Das, South San Francisco.
Mayank Agarwal, San Mateo. Hare Krishna.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we will start with Kirtan. We'll go on till 11:30. Yeah. Okay.
We'll start with Guru Vandana.
Whichever. Yeah. All yours.
Om Adhyana Timirandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanitam Tvam Sajivam Sadhaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kant Radhakant Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nastaiva Nastaiva Gati Ranatha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhate Girim Jatkipatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare
request Radha Krishna Prabhu for the wonderful Kirtan. And while we were doing the Kirtan, 2 new people joined us. They are our hosts. This is Neeral Prabhu and Khyati Mataji, who is going to distribute the sheets for us to read. So today we're going to read chapter number 18. Do we also have Bhagavad Gita sufficient copies? Okay,
yes,
maybe we
many
can.
on the top of it. There.
And
Yeah, I think 2 people can share one.
I've opened the moment.
so in
We
the
still have more,
Chapter
so
18.
18 from here. Likely 13 in PG, but later on. We'll first read from this. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the Amal Purana, there is in the second chapter, which is Divinity and Divine Service. It talks about the 3 aspects of the Lord. So it says, Vadanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yaj Jnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagwan Iti Shabdate. And it translates into that the learned transcendentalists, they describe the non-dual substance as in 3 ways. We call him as the Brahman, the Paramatma, and the Bhagwan. So Brahman is, Bhagwan we know is Lord Krishna as the Bhagwan. And from Lord Krishna, there is some effulgence that comes out, and that effulgence is known as Brahma Jyoti or Brahman. And Krishna also goes and pervades this entire manifestation, this entire material world. So he enters as the soul of this universe, and he also enters into our body. And in that form, he is known as Paramatma. So Param means super in English, and Atma means soul. So SuperSoul is also another word for Paramatma. So today, 18th chapter is about SuperSoul, and we will follow our standard format. Each one of you can read a paragraph each. So we'll start with Rakesh. We'll start with Mayank here.
Have you ever wondered how sometimes the greatest discoveries happen in the flash of a moment? How did Archimedes arrive at this eureka moment? How did Newton discover the law of gravitation when an apple fell from the tree? How do birds get their ability to fly and man to walk? According to Vedanta, summative Vedic teachings, Krishna expands and accompanies each and every living entity in order to guide his/her activities as the SuperSoul. This is seen in the form of inspiration or a sudden flash of insight experienced by scientists at the time of discovery, and by poets and artists in different circumstances.
The Kathopanishad explains that those who are living in the tree of the body are just like 2 birds. One bird is the localized aspect of Krishna, known as the SuperSoul or Paramatma, and the other bird is the living entity. One bird on the tree of the body is eating the fruits, and the other bird is simply witnessing. The living entity is eating the fruits of this material manifestation. Sometimes he eats the fruit of happiness, and sometimes he eats the fruit of distress. But the other bird, the SuperSoul, is not interested in eating the fruit of distress or happiness because he is self-satisfied. The function of the other bird is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarvair ahameva vedya vedantakrit vedavit eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart. From me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. Bhagavad Gita 15:1-5.
Krishna is situated as the SuperSoul in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all inspiration and activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the SuperSoul, who is a witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, remembrance is given to him, and he also forgets about his past life. Thus, The Supreme Personality is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruitive results and inspiration to the living entity.
The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but the Supersoul gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended in his last life. A living entity gets guidance from the Supersoul to enjoy or suffer the varieties of desires in this world. At the same time, the living entity also receives the opportunity from the Supersoul to inquire into and understand the spiritual aspects of life. If one is serious to understand spiritual knowledge, then Krishna, as a Supersoul, gives the required intelligence from within.
When a child desires to go to a theme park, the father accompanies the child to guide and facilitate the child's enjoyment. The father places the child on different rides and takes care of child's safety. However, when the child feels tired and wants to go home, the father happily takes the child back home. Similarly, all living beings are spirit souls belonging to the spiritual world, where they are eternally enjoying the Supreme Soul, Krishna. When a particular spirit soul wants to enjoy separate from him, Krishna accompanies the soul to the theme park of material world in his Super Soul feature. Residing in the heart of the living entity, Krishna as the Super Soul guides the living entity in different theme park rides in species of life. The Super Soul is a witness to all the activities, karma and desires of the living entity in different species of life. He reminds the living entity of the various desires in previous lives and awards the result of his karma based on what the living being deserves. The Super Soul is always eagerly and patiently waiting for the Spirit Soul to turn towards him. When the Spirit Soul is frustrated by his attempts to enjoy the illusions of this material world, the Super Soul happily directs the soul to the proper association of Bhakti yogis and gives instructions from within to guide the soul back home, back to God.
Sometimes we falsely think ourselves independent of the laws of material nature and free to act, but we are already under strict material laws. However, as soon as we act in Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness, we are liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual teacher.
For one who acts in Bhakti Yoga or in Krishna consciousness, the Super Soul, Krishna, becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort. He gives himself to his friend, who is so lovingly engaged, working 24 hours a day in his devotional service.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So there's a nice there's a mention of Super Soul in the Bhagavad Gita also. And anybody remember which chapter that is going to be, where Super Soul is discussed? 15, yeah, 15 was mentioned here. Sarvasya chaham hidi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarve rahamev vedyo vedanta krit veda videvu chaham. So let's look at chapter 13, and each one of us can read two translations like that, okay? So we'll start with Kathy. You got a chance to read?
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe Nero can read.
Chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Arjuna said, "O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, its nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field."
Yeah, you want more? Yeah.
O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion.
So what is knowledge?
To know the body.
To know the body and
It's knower.
and the knower of the body. So how many do you think know your body?
A little.
Tip of the iceberg, probably.
Tip of the iceberg, yeah. So there are two knowers of your body. You know about your body, the soul, and then the Paramatma who's situated in your body, he also knows about you. Okay? So there are two knowers of the body. So what's the difference between the soul and the super soul functionally? The difference between soul and the super soul is that the soul will know about its own body only. The soul thankfully doesn't know about other people's body. And that's why we don't know what others are thinking, which sometimes is good. And others don't know what we are thinking, which is even better. So there's soul, but the super soul is really super because it knows all the bodies. What is going on in all the bodies like that. Okay? So let's see. Yeah, let's continue with where... You finished reading, right? Rakesh, too.
That's why you hear sometimes in commentaries, if you watch the news, sometimes political commentaries, somebody will say, "Oh, I cannot get into his mind."
Yes, which is good.
And they'll ask, "What do you think about this person?" I say, "Oh, I cannot think."
Whereas
Sorry.
those who are like spiritually inclined, they can know like what is going on.
Yes. And actually, it's one of the mistake potencies that you get is the capability to read other people's mind and control it. Vanshita, to control
Yogi.
that also. The yogis are able to do that. Yeah. And actually, the yogis meditate on the super soul to get these mystic features. Yeah, they don't. Yeah. But the good thing is that if you are a bhakti yogi, if you are doing devotional service to Krishna, then you get all these mystic opulences as a byproduct. And just focusing on the mystic opulences, trying to be smaller than the smallest, larger than the largest, heavier than the heaviest, lighter than the lightest, and so on and so forth. It can be very, very mind-boggling and can deviate you from the path of devotional service, because if you get these features, number one, nothing corrupts like power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there'll be a tendency for us to get corrupted in that process, and there'll be a lot of adulation that people will do, and with these powers you can make money, and money is another evil. And so the bhakti yogis, even if they get all these mystic powers, they tend to just ignore it because their focus is more on serving Krishna rather than enjoying these mystic opulences that you get. Yeah, Mike.
But sometimes they use it to help other devotees also, right?
Yes, but there's always a danger. Padam padam yadvipadam nideshan. In this material world, there's always a danger.
Text 4. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Text 5. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect.
The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth, all these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything.
The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. The Supreme exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all.
Although the Supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledgeable. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart.
Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature.
Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effect, whereas the living entity is the cause of various suffering and enjoyment in this world. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst the various species.
Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer who is a Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the Supersoul. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position.
Some perceive the Supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. One who sees the Supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies and who understands that neither the soul nor the Supersoul within the destructible body is ever destroyed actually sees.
One who sees the Supersoul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, he sees how beings are expanded everywhere. He attains to the Brahman conception. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental eternal, beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, although situated in that body. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness.
Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to supreme goal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for reading this. So let's go back to our sheet, and there are quite a few points that are mentioned there. So I remember almost 30 years ago, I was attending a training program back in India. It was for the middle management, and they were trying to kind of soften the middle management because they are the ones who are in between, sandwiched in between the front end and the top gun of the organization. And they were trying to bring a little bit of consciousness into try to see the soul, but not using the word soul because it was a corporation there. And he was also telling us about the habits that we form. So if you repeat an action over and over a period of time, it becomes a habit. And he also pointed us to the fact that we should be present in the moment and not do things. And he used a very nice term, which I found very cool at that time, which was like, you run on autopilot. And so there's so many things that you do on your own and do on your autopilot. And so it was much, much later on when I started reading this chapter of Bhagavad Gita that I realized that who is that pilot there. So it's not the autopilot. Things don't happen on their own. There's always some superior force that is guiding us, and that is the super soul. And the more you become aware of the super soul, and one of the examples that was given here was of the bird, right? There are two birds sitting on a tree. So if this body is a tree, then the two birds are the soul and the super soul. And one of the birds is very active, trying to taste this and taste that, enjoy this and suffer that, and the other is just an observer and an overseer. And there's a very nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, the same chapter that we read, and we'll go a little bit into the details of that in a short while. But one of the things that we have to remember is that any action that we do or we think that we are doing has got certain factors to it, and the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about that. So there is the body, which is, the body has to be there, the senses are there, the act itself has to happen, right? So if I have a body, if I have a senses, but if I want to lift the book, I have to go and lift the book like that, right? And then a dead body cannot lift books, so you need to have a soul to be able to do these kind of actions. But even after I do all these, there's not a blade of glass moves in this world without the sanction of the Lord. And that is why the fifth factor for an action is the super soul, which is there in our heart. So there's nothing like our autopilot. The ultimate is super soul. He's there in our hearts as Updrishta and Anumanta. So Updrishta is somebody who's just observing you, is seeing what you're doing, and Anumanta is he gives you the permission to do that. The more you become aware of the super soul, the more the super soul will talk to you, right? For example, if a friend comes and starts talking to you, or if like right now I'm talking to you, and if you are listening to me, so that's giving me some feedback, and I will talk some more. And if you don't pay attention to me, you start looking this way and that way, start having conversations among yourselves, then I will stop talking after some time.
So Mataji, question: what do you exactly mean by aware of a super soul? Like how that process?
I will just tell you. Yeah, thank you. So the more you become aware of the other person, that I'm talking, I'm listening, I'm paying attention. So how do we know that super soul is in action, that something is coming from the super soul? Because we are being brought up and trained to, like, we are the doers, and we are encouraged to do things on your own, be self-made, like that. And then to take a complete 180-degree turn and to think that, oh, I'm really the helpless one and I'm actually being driven, right? Like, I breathe, But then if you breathe, then you'll be able to stop your breathing. Are you able to stop your breathing? Maybe for a few minutes, right? It's not even, we don't even breathe ourselves. We are being breathed, as it says. So there are other forces that are acting on a body that make us do those things. So one of the things which this handout starts with that when these discoveries are happening, right, where the eureka moment is there. So somebody's sitting in a shower and suddenly he figures it out, that how am I going to find out how much of gold and how much of silver is there in that crown, right, for the Archimedes principle, like that. So it is actually the super soul that is acting on you. And until somebody gives you that knowledge that there is a super soul, you will not know about it. So your thinking will also not go in that direction. So Archimedes can just think that I'm the most intelligent person. See, I figured it all out, right? But if you change your consciousness to being aware of that whenever something very good happens, and it is a practice, sadhana bhakti is what we are doing, right? So bhakti will be, leading you to Paramatma as well. And it's a constant practice. And I'll give you an example that today, I've just returned back from India, so jet lagged and all that kind of stuff, and had an extremely busy day yesterday. And I have a guest coming into my home in the morning, so I was busy cleaning up, trying to clean up the house. And I was remembering that we need to broadcast this program for those who can't watch us. Some of the regulars couldn't come today. And of course, those who regularly watch these programs online only. So I was just making a mental note for myself that I have to remember to put this cell phone in my purse, because the cell phone was being charged someplace else. And then at the suitable time this morning, I said, okay, now enough of charging, let me take it off and I'll put it in my purse. And I took it off. And then as I was taking off, this phone was not sufficiently charged. So I thought, I'll need this plug and I'll go to Khyati Mataji's house and I'll charge it something more. So I took the plug and I took the wire cord and I put it in my purse. And then I remembered that somewhere something was left and I was cleaning the house as well at the same time. So I said, okay, let me go and pick that up. And in that process, I completely forgot the cell phone there, completely forgot it on my table. And nicely, I went and did something else for an hour and then came back. And I told Rakesh, let's go. And I was leaving and I was going out of my home to come here. And then suddenly my eyes go towards the table and I see the phone over there. So those moments, such moments are the moments that you watch out for and be aware that it is not something that happened. Your eyes just don't fall on things like that. It is the super soul within you who is trying to help you. That, you can imagine, I was already running late. I just came here at the last moment to realize halfway through that we have forgotten the cell phone and trying to use another cell phone, which means I have to remember my password, and so it's a nightmare. So super soul will help you. So being aware of it. Sometimes people will just take it as a miracle and say, oh wow, I remembered it at the last moment. I was about to forget it, but I remembered. And the other approach is that no, you did not remember, you completely forgot it. It is the super soul acting within it, right? And as the more you start chanting, the more you progress in devotional service, the more you become aware of super soul, the more super soul will help you. And the more you surrender to Krishna, the more you will see, and you'll start to see. And I will say it's a very nice experience to start looking out for super soul, because then it's a very joyous moment, right? Because again, I remember that my husband is a big Costco fan, so he buys things in bulk, and we are only 2 people. And I want to severe dietary restrictions, so half of the things don't get used. And so one day somebody was coming, and I was looking for a can of pineapple, and I wanted to make something. And I looked into my storeroom, which is always packed, and I started looking here and there, couldn't find it, and I was getting very close to dinner time. And so in desperation, I just said, oh Lord, please help me, And you will not believe, within the next microsecond, I found a big box of pineapple chunk. It was right next to it was on the floor. And I was looking on, various shelves and trying to find it. So super soul you will experience super soul like that. And when these moments happen, then you really feel very close to God, because then, you see that something else beyond and supernatural is happening in life and helping you and, taking control of your life. We see here in the narration, we also read that he will give you permission to do certain things, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that permission, but we also have to remember that as we start, you all have come into this material world, right? And it's said that you have come here to enjoy, and there are various species of life that you go. And here also in the Bhagavad Gita chapter that we read, 13th chapter, the verse number 22nd says that Purusha, so you are the enjoyer, Purush means enjoyer, so you are a small enjoyer in the body. So Purusha prakriti stohi, bhungte prakriti jar guna, karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmashu. So it says that you are the enjoyer, but because, and which is that you are spiritual, but because of your association with the various modes of material nature, karanam guna sangasya, right? So because of the various, your association with them, and your association comes first from the fact that you think that you are the body. So that's the biggest association and the misconception. So because of that, Karanam gun sangasya sad asad yoni janmasu. So you take birth in good and bad species of life. And how many species of life? Just so that you don't get bored in your process of enjoying things. Lord has made, in this material universe, we have got 84 lakh species, right?
1.4 million.
Yeah, 8,400,000 or 84 lakh species of life, which will be like there are about, 2 lakh or 9 lakhs are those who live in the sea. So 9 lakh aquatics are there, right? And then there'll be some 20 lakh of plants and animals and reptiles and insects. So they all run into lakhs and lakhs. And then there are 400,000 species of human beings that we have, which is the best species to go, because from the platform of a human being, from a human body, is when we can do bhakti yoga in the best possible way, because the bodies are constructed in such a way, the hands are constructed in such a way that you can chant, you can hold a book, and you can do various services, right? If you are in an animal species, you can't read, you can't understand, and things like that. So this is the best species of life. So Karan and Guna Sangasya, because of that, we are moving in various species of life.
Meditation for 1 minute, it will get over.
Oh,
Some auto thing. Yeah.
I thought it was phone or something.
Yeah.
So like that.
And it's a reminder for us every hour.
I hope it's not a reminder for me to stop.
I want to raise one question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Conscience. Can that be considered an influence of
Ve-
super soul?
Very good. Conscience is, thank you for reminding me, conscience, the voice of conscience is the super soul talking to you.
But also I was thinking, one person's conscience is not the same as another person's conscience.
Conscience, consciousness.
Yeah,
and
no, but
conscience.
I'm asking about conscience. When apparently something is wrong, but in your heart you know that this is right,
Yes.
or the other way rather.
Yes.
So,
Very nice
but
point.
everybody has different standards, for
Yes.
what is right and what is wrong.
Exactly. So the Paramatma, the super soul, is the same. In everybody's heart, the soul is the same, and the Paramatma is also the same, right? But what gets projected, or when you look inside, you see something different. And the different seeing is that although the Paramatma is saying that this is wrong, we still go ahead and do it, right? And that is because we have got layers and layers of anarthas that are accumulated, and that is what differentiates one person from another person. Some person will just listen to the voice of Lord. And we had a sannyasi who once came to ISKCON Silicon Valley, and he said a very wonderful thing, and I really liked it. He said that God speaks to you in various ways. So he first is a very subtle way. He speaks to you through the scriptures, right? He said something to Arjuna 5,000 years ago. We documented that. It's up to you. You want to read it? Not to want to believe it in it? You believe it in. The second is that there's a whisper of love. And that whisper of love is what you talked about just now, is the voice of conscience. The conscience, that's right, the Christians call it your conscience. We call that as our super soul or Paramatma. So he speaks to you and he will tell you that, don't do it. So before you're about to do something wrong, we always know that it is wrong, right? So who tells you it is wrong? Of course, you might have read it in scripture, but who reminds you at that particular point in time? It is the super soul that reminds you. So after the super soul is reminding you, so he's observing what you're doing and he will remind you. And then comes the layers of this anarthas that we have, and you have to wade through these layers of anarthas, and as you go through the layers of anarthas, these layers of anarthas will actually determine and decide what action you're going to take. Are you going to listen to their voice of conscience, or you're not going to listen to the voice of conscience? And that is what we call as the layers is differentiating and determining your consciousness. Some people are completely in the mode of ignorance. They're the lowest in the consciousness. Even if the super soul says something, they're like, nah, I'm still going to do it. But I can't help it. I have to do it. Then some people will be a slightly higher mode. They might be in the mode of passion, and they will sometimes listen, sometimes they won't listen, right? And then there are those in the mode of goodness. They will listen. Oh my God, God is telling me, thank you, God, and then they will not do that thing like that. So it is super soul, although is the same, but the lens through which you see the super soul or act on the instructions of the super soul are different. And so there could be a little dialogue also happening between you and Paramatma inside your body. And that is, he's saying, don't do it. Like, I want to do it. No, don't do it. I want to do it. So, it's a whisper of love. So when you love somebody, you won't push and you won't beat and you won't do anything, right? I'm just telling you, you want to do it, you do it. If you don't want to do it, I'm just guiding you. And so when you are in a lower mode of consciousness where you just tend to ultimately ignore the super soul and you do whatever you want to do, then there will be consequences. So we have to remember that although we are sort of lords of our body and we have the final power to do whatever the super soul tells us to do or not to do, but there will still be consequences of our actions. Okay? So Lord speaks to us in three ways. One is through the scripture, second is through the Paramatma, right? So first is silent, you read it yourself. The second is through the whisper of love as the Paramatma, and then he also talks to you through the loudspeaker of misery. Because if you don't listen to him, you are definitely bound to be miserable sooner or later. Okay? So there are three ways in which we can talk. So those who have a lower consciousness and are not listening to the voice of conscious will suffer, the loud voice of misery. So it's better not to do that. Also, as we progress in devotional service more and more, in the beginning, I was saying that Karanam Guna Sangasya, so we are in the association of the modes of material nature. They act on us at various times of the day. And the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, they always fight amongst each other for supremacy. Sometimes one mode wins, sometimes other mode wins, and so on and so forth. And so we are under the control of the material nature. We have to accept that fact because, of the false identification. But as which is Maya or Durga-devi. So as we continue our progress in devotional service, and Suyash, you can come a little forward. Yeah. I can't see you. Yeah. You can come close together also. Yeah. So, but as you progress in devotional service, and you can move a little bit towards your left. Yeah. Yeah, so that you are in between the two ladies and I can see all of them. So as you progress in devotional service, then instead of Maya controlling your life, Radha actually controls your life. And when Radharani starts controlling your life, then your voice of conscience becomes really, really powerful. Even if you want to do certain wrong things, she won't let you do them. So if you try to drink alcohol and pick up the glass of wine, despite all that the super soul told you, it'll fall and slip off from your hand. So things like that will happen. He really does take care of that over there. Okay? So did I answer your question? Thank you. So so where is this?
Just to follow, I guess the real conscience acts through the filter of the anarthas, right?
Yes.
So unless anarthas are removed, you cannot actually hear the super soul directly.
Properly, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's a question of purification.
It's a question of
purification.
purification.
The more you're pure, the more you're connecting with the super soul. Absolutely. You can imagine the super soul to be like a bulb, very effulgent, and it is effulgent. And the super soul is very beautiful. And do you have a Science of Self-Realization with you? The super soul is shown on the cover page of Science of Self-Realization. So the super soul is in the form. There you go. You read about super soul back in 77. And so the super soul is beautiful four-handed form of Vishnu. That is how the super soul is in your body. So this is the super soul. Okay,
and beautiful form of Vishnu, four-handed, and will have the shank, the chakra, the gada, the four things in his hands. He's wearing a beautiful yellow dhoti. He's wearing ornaments, and he'll have a helmet on his head, and so on and so
It's
forth.
actually Kshirodakshay Vishnu, right? Is the super soul.
Very good. Yes. So, and since you brought the topic of Vishnu, there are three Vishnus. So originally we have the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Krishna, who lives in Golok Vrindavan, and all he does is he plays. So he's the owner of everything, and all he does is play. I still remember way back when I was working for Oracle, owned by Larry Ellison at that time, and so one of our hardware engineers once was called to his home to repair his laptop. Something wrong had happened, and I was just talking to her, and I was asking like, oh, what does it feel like to go to Larry Ellison's home? And you must have been under extreme pressure going to the big man and have to fix his laptop. And she said, no. I said, what happened? I was shocked, So I said, why, what happened? So he said, well, when I went there, the laptop was in his room, and he was actually in the backyard, so he called me there. And there was a nice squirrel who was sitting on the tree, and the squirrel had some nuts, and he was breaking the nuts very deftly, and he was popping them in his mouth, and he was eating it. And Larry Ellison was observing that. And he says, come here, let's watch the squirrel. So he says he watched the squirrel for 2 hours. I stayed in his home for 2 hours, and then after that, he was like, the laptop, then she went and looked at the laptop, and she said, and she was very worried because the motherboard was bad, so she couldn't do an immediate fix. She said, we have to replace the motherboard. She didn't bring a additional motherboard, or maybe she didn't have the authority to replace or whatever. And so she was, again, she was tensed up, and she said, what is he going to say? His laptop is broken. And then she said, he didn't care whether the laptop worked or not worked. So I was like, wow, when you are the owner of everything, you really don't care. And I can imagine, one day that my laptop would be out for 3 hours, I would be in complete panic, That's what has happened. So that is what Krishna is. All that he does is play, And as Vaisheshika Prabhu says that he doesn't even wear shoes. If you go and see, if you look at the DT, nowhere is Krishna wearing shoes, because he's playing. You wear shoes when you go to work, right? When you go to office, you put on your shoes. So he's not doing that. But then there is this whole material universe that has to be managed. So there's a lot of work to be done, right? So to do that work, he expands himself in the form of Vishnu. And there are various Vishnus that are there. So the first and the foremost is the Mahavishnu. People also call him as Narayan. So there's a difference between Krishna and Narayan. Sometimes people think that Narayan is the supreme, but there is Krishna, which is really at the top. And we have to understand that Narayan is an expansion. He's a complete expansion of Krishna. So they are plenary expansions, as they are called. They complete in themselves, except for they will not manifest all the features that are there. They won't show all of them. So Vishnu will have a lesser number of features, or which you will perceive Vishnu to have a lesser number of features. So essentially, there is no difference between the Paramatma in your heart and Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. But this Paramatma will not show all the features that Krishna has. For example, this Paramatma will not have a flute in his hand like that. That flute exclusively belongs to Krishna. So the Mahavishnu, or Narayan, is actually lying in the ocean of Karan, in a causal ocean. It's an ocean of transcendental waters. And he's lying there in Yoga Nidra, which means he's not sleeping. He's half asleep, he's half awake. And from the pores of his body, all these universes come out. Okay? So there's that Mahavishnu there in Yoga Nidra. So once a universe comes out, right? So everything has got to have a soul. And so the soul of the universe is what is called as the super soul. So in every universe, there will be a soul of the universe. And that Vishnu is known as Shraddhadevi. Right? Shir means milk. Shiro.
Oh, in the...
Yeah,
okay.
in the other two there, yeah. So Shraddhadevi, and I'll come to Shraddhadevi as well. So there's Shraddhadevi. So Shir means, in Sanskrit,
Milk.
Shir means milk, exactly right. So Shir means milk, and so in the ocean of milk, Shai means he's lying down in a reclined position. So Shir is the ocean of milk. So sometimes you see that whenever there is some problem in this universe which cannot be solved by the demigods, they all go to Brahma. And Brahma says, oh, this is beyond me. Then they all go to Shraddhadevi Vishnu to ask for answers to that question. Okay? So that's there, one Vishnu lying there. Now, inside the universe, there'll be a place, called Shraddhadevi, and inside that Shraddhadevi there will be an ocean of milk, and that's where. So this Kshirodakshay Vishnu is what you mentioned, is the Paramatma. So this Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and that's something very difficult for us to conceive. He's there in the ocean of milk, lying down there, and again in the form of a Vishnu, which will be means four-handed form with a Sheshnag on top of him, and with the Lakshmi pressing his feet like that. But he is also there in the all-pervading form. And this all-pervading form is completely pervading, in the sense that he's there in everybody's heart as Paramatma, right? So he's there in that form that I showed you, Science of Sensualization book. And then he also enters each and every atom. Each and every atom of this universe has got the SuperSoul inside it, right? So it's a very complicated thing to think that how is it now I see that form over there, and then how is he here and how is he there. This is known as Achintya. With the faculties that we have, with the intelligence that we have, and with the brain power that we have, we cannot conceive of the SuperSoul as how can he be there and how can be here. All that will be really revealed to us as we continue our progress in our devotional service. Okay? So devotees who find Krishna will find the SuperSoul also as a consequence. It happens to them as a natural fact. So he's known as the Kshirodakshay Vishnu. And then how is the universe shaped? Every universe is in the shape of an egg, right? So if you take an egg, if you take a hen's egg, you will know that it is half filled with the yolk and the white albumin which is there inside. So it's kind of like a watery substance there, and there is this yellow yolk which is floating in that, and the other half is all empty. So the universe is also like that, and that's why it's called a Brahmand, Anda, because it's shaped like that. And so half of it is filled with water, okay? And that water is known as Garbh Udak. And you will find similarities between that universe and between the uterus of a lady, right? The uterus is also filled with water, with Udak, right? And similarly, this universe is also half filled with water. And on that water, there is a Vishnu that is lying down again. And that Vishnu is known as the Garbhodai Dakshayi Vishnu. So he is lying on the Garbh Udak, right? And from the navel of this Vishnu comes out a lotus. There's a golden lotus that comes out. And on the top of that lotus is where Brahma resides. Okay? So try to imagine there is a universe, and inside that universe there is this water, half filled with water. On this water, there's Vishnu who is lying down. From the navel of this navel pit of the Vishnu, there's a golden lotus that's coming up. And on the topmost part, which is the golden lotus, is where Brahma is living. Okay, all this is the material universe, remember, and there are millions and millions and millions of such universes which are all coming out from the pores of Mahavishnu. So if you can imagine how big this room is, and then how big Millbrae is, and then how big California is, and how big America is, and then how big this earth is, and how big the solar system is, and then millions of solar systems are there that we know of, and then there are so many more that we don't know of, all that comprise of this universe. Okay. So you can imagine how big the Garbhodakshay Vishnu will be in size if from his navel pit all these universes are coming out. And how big the Kshirodakshay Vishnu will be, who is there inside this universe controlling it. And then how big this Mahavishnu is going to be in size if from the pores of his body all these are coming out, right? So if you want to be in awe and reverence and to look at the magnificence of things, then you go towards Vishnu. Because the more you read about Vishnu, the more you see how super intelligent he is and how he's controlling everybody, and he's there in everybody's heart. And Mayank, you are from Oracle and also from the database world, so you will relate to that. That when the 10th version of Oracle came out, they named it as 10G, and the G stood for grid. And so they had a nice, grid kind of architecture where all the computers were connected in a grid, and there was a, some place from where you could monitor and control all these grids. And the question was, how do you control and how do you know what's going on in all these computers? So they would put a little grid agent, the EM agent would be there. And this agent's job was to see what's happening in a particular computer and then relay to the central place what is happening there. So similarly, if you think that all of us are these little computers and in this grid of this universe, then the Paramatma is actually that little agent who is monitoring all that is happening and keeps track of all that happens. So when we leave this body and go into another body, right, which is called death in other words. So the soul goes from one body to another body. The 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita will talk about that, talks about that. So it leaves this body, goes to another body, and with it, it carries a few things, right? So what does it carry with you? It'll leave these senses and all that will be left over here, a digestive system, circulatory system, the heart and all is left here. But with you, into your next body, whatever it is destined to be, with you will go your mind, your intelligence, and the concept of false ego, which will now make you identify that you are this next body. Right now I'm thinking I'm this body, but the moment I go into another body, I think I'm that body, and then that body, and then that body. So my intelligence, my memory, and my mind go with me, and also the super soul goes with you. So when you listen to the pastimes of Krishna, especially the pastimes of Yashoda and Krishna, so Yashoda is the dear mom, and Krishna, she's very, very attached to Krishna, and of course she will be, because we are very much attached to ourselves. I still remember a few years ago there was a huge tsunami, and a lot of people died. There were some people who were out on the ocean with their children and things like that. But when the woman was holding very tightly to the child, but then finally a time came when she had to struggle for her own life, so she let go of her child. She let go of that hand to catch on to something else, to save herself. So although we might think that we love our dear ones so much, but in a sense the person that we love the most is ourselves. And then so if we love ourselves so much, the soul loves itself, that loves the body, thinks it loves the body, loves itself. And the super soul is actually the soul of the soul. So if we love ourselves so much, you can imagine how much more we will love the soul of the soul. So we have a strong love for the super soul as well. It's just that it is hidden under the layers of anarthas that have to be purified. So where do these soul and the super soul live? They both live in our heart. The soul and the super soul in the heart region of this body that we have. And so Yashoda Maya is very much attracted to Krishna because he's the soul of the soul, and she's a soul, so she's attracted to Krishna. And so she, early in the morning when Krishna gets up, she makes sure that she feeds good amount of food to Krishna. Krishna eat this, Krishna eat that, Krishna eat this, Krishna eat that. And then she will pack a nice sumptuous lunch for him as well. And then as Krishna is about to go out, with his Gwala friends to go and herd the cows, she will call Krishna back, and she'll tell him that, what, I know you're just going to spend the whole time playing. You will forget how to eat, and that you have to eat. So why don't you eat half of your lunch here itself, in front of my eyes? So she will feed him something more. So this thing keeps going on and on till Krishna gets angry and says like, Mom, I'm going away, I have to go. So all of us who have moms or would-be moms, we know that we have this tendency and this feeling within us to love our kids to that extent. So from where is this love coming, right? So from where have you originated? From where has all this universe originated? So you can go back to the Narayan form, to the Garbhodakshay, to the Karanadakshay Vishnu. And so they come from him. And from where has Vishnu come? He has come from Krishna. So if we have got these tendencies to kind of, follow. I still remember that my daughter used to live with us. So being the mom, you monitor. She gets up, She goes to sleep, She eats, the few hours that she's away in school, you don't know, but you wish you knew. and so on and so forth. So you always want to know, you always want to be with your child. And when they leave and go away to their colleges and things like that, you really want to be the fly on the wall of the room, so that you can still go and see what they're doing. Are they eating? Are they in good company? Are they in bad company? And so on and so forth. So you want to do that. Again, that tendency is coming from Krishna, and that is that tendency that manifests itself as the super soul. Because we rebelled, and we all belonged to Golok Vrindavan. We were there, we were serving Krishna, but at some point in time, because of free will that we have, we decided that, why should Krishna enjoy? Why should we serve Krishna? I want to enjoy myself. And Krishna says, okay, if you want to enjoy yourself, I'm going to create a nice universe for you, and I'm going to give you 84 lakh species of life, 8,400,000 species. You go and try to enjoy. But then being like the mom and being like the Yashoda, he follows us. He doesn't leave us alone. And he comes here to monitor and observe us and to see and to guide us and to help us. And it is up to us. And that's why he says, Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, in everybody's heart I am situated. In everybody's heart. He's there in the heart of an ant. He's there in the heart of a giraffe. He's in our heart everywhere. And from me come the remembrance. So from him came the remembrance that I have to look at that table and pick up my cell phone so that we could do the broadcast. So from him comes these things, remembrance. From him also come the forgetfulness. So if he really wants to, if you are getting too hairy and you think that, I remember everything, I remember shlokas, and then you go in front of the camera and the eases of sloka just leaves your brain at that time, and then you're like, what was the next line? And then it just doesn't come. Nobody from the audience is going to help you, and there you are, right? So forgetfulness will come from Krishna like that. And not only that, not only this kind of a forgetfulness which is on the border of chastisement, but the other kind of forgetfulness also, that you forget the bad things people did to you and you move on, right? That forgetfulness also comes from Krishna. You also forget all your previous births. Now, why do you think you forget your previous births? If you were to remember, what would happen?
Then you will be in this body, but thinking about the other circumstances.
Other
So
circumstances?
you are never in the present, you are living in the past.
In the past.
Very
And
painful
Thousands of
memories.
births, right?
thousands of births, so it will be very complicated.
Very painful memories, like you remember your previous deaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
You remember your previous deaths, and like, then he will remember that I owe him $1 million for previous and he's like, she's not even talking about it.
Big trouble.
Big trouble. Exactly, big trouble. And sometimes, your enemies come as your children. They give you grief. Well, not big time enemies, but somebody has to give you grief, so they'll become your teenage kids and they'll give you grief and you will suffer like that. But then, but we forget all that and we love our kids, to that extent, as Yashoda does that. Also, if you were of a different gender in your previous birth, what will you do? You'll be very confused, right? Am I a woman? Am I a man? But I was a woman. I used to do that in my previous birth. So God, in all His wisdom, hides both the past as well as the future from us, and just keeps us here, and also hides whatever we are thinking from the others around us, so that we don't, so that they don't know what's going
So
on.
Mataji, with all due respect, I have a different understanding.
Mhm.
I don't want to argue about it, but we don't all come from Golok Vrindavan. And I'm sure you have your references, but I can also show my reference.
Okay.
There are different living entities.
Mhm.
Some are the marginal jivas, tatastha jivas, originate from so-called place in between the material and the spiritual world. They have never been with Krishna actually. And that is borne out by Krishna's statement in the Gita. He says, one who goes to my planet never comes to the material world. So if we have been with Krishna and we're coming from there, then we would not be in the
We will not
material
be
world.
here. Yeah.
This is just
Another
I'm just
viewpoint.
giving you another point.
Exactly, yeah. So I quote Srila Prabhupada, and that's what I follow. I follow my spiritual masters. And one of the things that that Krishna has given is freedom for everybody to think in the way that they want to think. And you will find that even in the Shastras, that originally there were just one Vedas, and then Vedvyas divided that into many, and then he puts different sages in charge of the different sides of the Vedas, and then they had their own disciples, and they had even two people in ISKCON won't think the same way. So that's the variety that is there in a life. So different people quote different things. One might just think that, so what about Prabhupada? Right? Is he from Golok Vrindavan or not? and if he's from Golok Vrindavan, then why is he here in this material world?
Well,
So
that's a different thing. That can be answered. There are different servants of Krishna. So there could be liberated souls, and there are those who are not liberated. So Krishna can send his own personal devotee in the form of Srila Prabhupada or Bhakti Siddhanta to reclaim fallen souls. But that doesn't mean that we are all in the same position.
yeah, we are not in the same position, right? So Prabhupada is a liberated soul. He was there. But then how do we understand that one who reaches there doesn't come down? Like that,
Well, we
So-
have Krishna's own words in the Bhagavad
Krishna's
Gita.
own words,
Jad
exactly.
Gatvana Nivartante Tad Dham Paramam.
Yes. So when we come across things like that can be interpreted, right? Some lines can interpret, and that's fine. Some lines can interpret it in a way that, well, you start from some point in between in the Viraja river, and then you come up over here, and then you go through all these cycles, and then you finally go back, and then there is no coming back, right? There are other thoughts that say that, no, when I'm going back through the cycle. You go through 84 million, or you just go through 3 cycles and you go back, depending on what choices you made. And then you are there, but then you come back on special projects. So they are not differentiating between the various souls. Any soul, once liberated, can go there. And actually, some of them really want to come back. Like Prahlad Maharaj said that, I don't want to go back. I don't give me any opulences. Don't give me anything. I really want all these fools and rascals to go back. So he was of those who are known as the Ghoshtiyanandis. They really like to preach, right? They really like to help other people. Some are Bhajananandis. They like to be so solitary, alone. They will do their own pursuit of Lord. They will find the Lord and they'll go back. And actually, we need both of them. We need both of them because the Bhajananandis who sit in isolations are the ones who really sit down and focus on and come up with the philosophy, write the philosophy, document it, and things like that. Those who go out on preaching, for us who go out on book distribution, one Saturday gone in book distribution, by the time you come back home, it's very difficult. You're tired to even read your own one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's like, let's read it the next day. Forget about, speculating, going deeper into it on that part of it. Some people even think like that you know what, you are a tathast, you're a marginal entity. You have a tendency to get overpowered by the material energy. So even after you go through this cycle of birth there and you go back over there, there is still a chance that
but
because
that
you're
doesn't happen
marginal.
in the spiritual world. Although you have your independence, you are so much overcome with Krishna's internal energy that the soul never actually thinks of coming here.
So that's
the independence comes only at the tatastha, the marginal position. That's from where you choose.
Yes.
You either choose the path of dedication or you choose the
So
path of exploitation.
are you saying Golok Vrindavan, or are you also including all
Vaikuntha
the
planets.
all the Vaikuntha planets,
Yeah.
right?
So
then-
Tatastha is neither Vaikuntha planet nor Golok. It's like you can say
Right. Yeah.
when Mahavishnu sits down, right, on the couch and he's glancing. So you can, actually what I mean by Tatastha is Brahma Jyoti, or you can think of Mahavishnu's body. That's what I'm calling Tatastha.
Okay.
He lies down in a place which is neither the spiritual world nor the material world.
He's on the Virija
Borderline.
River. Yeah. So Virija River and the Kajal Ocean are one and the same thing. So he's lying
So
over
you
there.
can think of that also as
Yes,
Tatastha.
but then we also have instances of Jaya and Vijay from the Vaikuntha.
But
planet,
that's
right?
different. That is,
They
they
come
wanted to. The Lord wanted them to come to help them assist in His Leela. If you read the purpose of Prabhupada very clearly, he says therefore he actually makes it very clear that they did not fall down. They had something to do for Krishna,
Yes.
and that's why Krishna chose them
Chose
to
them
come.
to come. Yes.
And nobody can fight with Krishna except for his own pure devotees.
Pure devotees. That is true. Because when Krishna comes, he wants to fight. He finds for his 4 devotees. If there are others, then Vishnu does the fighting for them.
And if you read the books of our Mahajan, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, very, very clear that nobody falls down from Guru. Very clear.
Yeah. But I just go by Prabhupada, so we can beg
But
to
even
differ.
Prabhupada has said things that are equivocal at times. But he has also written, when he has given his written
Yes.
statements, his purport, very clearly he says, his spiritual world is the eternal abode from which no one falls down.
Yes.
Very clearly he has
Yeah.
stated.
So different people look at it in different ways, and different acharyas will say that till we find it out for ourselves. We never know. Yeah, we never know.
I think experience is a different dimension, right? When we experience ourselves, this is like
Yes.
knowledge that we heard of through.
True, but at the same time there is what is called Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the ultimate scriptural conclusion, and you cannot, even you may have some different experience, but you cannot contradict the scriptural conclusions of the
it's not
Shastra.
about contradicting, it's about experiencing that in yourself.
Experiencing to the extent that you experience it, and also people fight on the Siddhanta only, right? What is Siddhanta?
Then they are not doing proper.
The knowledgeable, the learned sages, they will argue on the Siddhanta like this is right, this is not right, and that's why you have so many factions that come out, right? Krishna comes and speaks, and even in our line, there are so many sampradayas and so many,
But I tell you, on the Vaishnava Sampradaya, on the points of Siddhanta, there may be some differences in understanding rasa and things like that. But certain Siddhanta, like there's no contradiction. Even Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, nobody has said that we have existed in Vaikuntha and we have come down to the world. Nobody has said. You will not find any statement.
Actually, to put that matter to rest, because I'm running a little over time.
Anyway,
Is that Prabhupada just says, never mind from where you came. It doesn't matter from where you came. The reality is that you are here, and you figure out a way to get out of that, right? And once you get out of that, here's the thing: that after reaching this after reaching the spiritual world, if your constitution is like that you won't never ever come back, very nice, that's your faith. If you think that well, there are chances that I might be asked to come and work for Krishna, that is fine, because the bhakta will do it happily. To others it might look like Prabhupada was suffering when he took sannyas and a bull came and gored him. How can this happen? But Prabhupada internally doesn't feel it that way. It's for us to see, right? It could be that. It could be if it happens that no, because you're still marginal, by nature you are marginal, and that is why, then you
No, one is by force, another is by Krishna's will.
Yeah,
This is the difference, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the point of starting, right? The force is starting from Virija river, according to you. And others are saying the forceful thing also even starts from the top, from the spiritual planet. So that's where the
No, but
difference is.
Krishna says there is no question of envy in the spiritual world. There is no question of Maya.
Yeah, there is transcendental.
Nikatastha
things,
Maya
yeah.
Japutiyadhara in Chaitanya Charitamrita
Yes.
says from the marginal potency he can see both the spiritual world and the material world. And material world is close by. Nikatastha Maya, close by. And so some souls they choose they choose to come, and then there are other souls who are promoted directly to the spiritual. Anyway,
And what do the souls do?
yeah.
What do the souls do when they are in Virija river? What do they do there? Do they tell
That is called anadi karma. There's no question of time there, right? Time and space only comes within the material world.
Yeah, but what
So
do they
Viraj,
do? What
they
do
are
they do?
they are like in a state of insolence, or you can say they're like small particles of spirit in the body of Mahavishnu or in Brahmajyoti. They're one with and then it's a very complicated thing actually. We can't even conceive of it. It's like a uniform, as the way Sridhar Maharaj describes it, uniform sheet of consciousness, and from that then there is movement.
Yes.
And then they choose either the path of dedication or the path of expression.
Yeah, so I think our mismatch is only on the last step. Like this philosophy is also, whatever I understand of Prabhupada, is also talking about the same thing, that when the universes are wound up, all the souls
That's
enter
different.
and
Yeah,
reside
that's
in the
social
womb. Yeah, but they are still in the womb
Right.
of
But this
Mahavishnu.
that is because they have already entered
And
this
yes,
material
and I'm
world.
just saying,
It's
yeah,
like-
our difference is only from the step. Like yours they start from there, and ours are from they fell from there. But really doesn't matter.
You can just
Here
read
is where
Jaiva
we are.
Dharma. You'll get a lot of insights from that.
Yeah, it is in one of my list of books to read. I have downloaded that. I don't know when I'll get to that. But I should, Bhakti Thakur. Yeah.
I don't know
So-
what Vaisheshika Prabhu thinks about this, but
We can
I've
ask
not
him
asked
today.
He may be not coming to. But
Yeah.
either way, like you said, our most important
Most
thing
important
is
thing
to
is,
actually
yeah.
go to the spiritual
Yes. Prabhupada says that, because these are questions like, so why did I come? At what time did I come? And he says that, we from times immemorial.
Yeah.
He says that we don't know,
Yes.
and there's no
Yes.
point. Yeah.
You
And
have to
from-
also remember that Prabhupada was teaching very much according to time, place, circumstance. All acharyas speak according to
Yes.
time, place,
Yeah.
circumstance.
Yes.
So at that time, he had practically all were disciples, were hippies practically. They were in the Western world, right? So he was speaking to a different kind of audience from the audience that was spoken to by other previous acharyas like
acharyas, that's
Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah.
So those things are also...
Yeah, sometimes he does lighten things up and simplify things.
Prabhupada also spoke equivocally. Sometimes you'll say one thing, sometimes...
That's
Because he's
Krishna-
speaking
that-
according to time plus...
That Krishna speaks, yeah. I'm saying that Krishna speaks equivocally, all the time. Yeah.
Prabhu want to say.
Mati, so if something is not conceivable, right? Basically, we cannot really verify. Okay, there is all different.
Where does
Garbhodaya.
it originate?
So where does origin and all those things. So then always there'll be debates, I believe.
Absolutely.
So then
always,
do we really, like, for example, we say, okay, we trust Krishna is there, he's our savior, he's there. So then again, I'll talk from my perspective, right? I tend to, okay, I'm not that curious about what all is there in that planet. Okay, as long as I know Krishna is here, I'll just reach out to him and say, okay, say his name. Well, she would have all the questions, all the reason. So again, that's
and both of you are right. So a couple of things I wanted to. Radha Krishna Prabhu is very dear to me. We are friends. So that's why he feels comfortable, talking
And
to
we're
me
not
like
fighting,
that.
we're
And
just
we're not
bringing
fighting.
something out,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
discussing.
Yeah. So there are different people have a different bend of mind.
Right.
Right? And again, you know, he bought into one philosophy, I bought into another philosophy. Adav Shraddha, Tada Shadusanga. It all begins with faith. Wherever you repose your faith, then that is what you will like that. And when it comes to argument, you know, we can argue now, we can argue, he can defeat me today or I can defeat him today from arguments. We can go back and read some more, argue again. This time he beats me, I go back and read some more or somebody. So arguments are there till arguments, the one who wins an argument is a winner only up until such time that somebody else comes and beats him in that argument. So it's like that. So like you said, the reality we will know only when we go there. Right, and until such time, as you reach there, there will be different paths and different personalities and different consciousness and different likes and dislikes. Like right in your family, right? Kathy likes to ask questions, and it's not wrong to ask questions, because sometimes when a person asks a question, you're like, oh, I never thought of that, but that's a good question, like that.
Also, different jivas. Some are destined to go to Vaikuntha, and others may go to Golok or to where Lord Ramchandra lives, Ayodhya, spiritual Ayodhya.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a very pertinent point that you made in your lecture that really stuck out for me, is that when we don't listen to Paramatma, there are consequences. I've seen it throughout my life that if you don't listen to the voice of Paramatma, there are consequences in each and every step.
Actually, Vaishnav Guru says that consequence has the word sequence in it. Sequence means steps, and the things come to you step by step. And the bad part is that when we are kids, we do tend to hear a lot to the voice of conscience and to our parents. But as we become adults, we get freedom, and then we kind of quieten it out. And the thing is that the more you stop listening to your voice of conscience, then the layer is increasing on top of it, and so the voice will stop coming through till that one point in time you won't even hear that there is something there that talks to you. And that's why we do Krishna Katha, because when the Krishna Katha enters from your ear and goes into your heart, it vibrates your heart, and all the anarthas fly away like that.
Recently we heard a Krishna Katha in someone's house, and they were saying how all the cowherd boys, they were actually forcing their mothers to make the lunch fast because they had to go quick. That ties in with what you were saying today.
You don't want to.
That's when she laughed the most. It happens every day, right? Kind of lunch.
Oh, with the mom,
So today it's your turn. Today it is your turn. Because you are doing Nirjala.
Yes, you see, I'm in no hurry to stop the class. But I think we are close to the time.
Yeah.
Any last reflections, any last thoughts before we call it?
I think the analogy that gave, right? Paramatma comes with us in this material world as a super soul, and they are always there with us, is very comforting, because in the material world you really feel isolated, and you are actually not.
You are not, And guess what? You have the most powerful person with you. And we are really rich because we are Krishna's children. Yeah, but we forget that, and then we start doing things on our own, and we end in this sphere. Like that.
As soon as you turn toward Paramatma says, okay, you are interested in me, he will show you the Guru. To approach.
I also like that, along that line, I also like the analogy of the child wants to go to a circus or a Ferris wheel, they mentioned there, and when he's tired and wants to go back home, then the father takes him back home. That was very nice, I mean, these are short lessons, I don't know, hats off to one who wrote them, but they're very, very powerful. Every sentence has got so much that you can talk a lot.
There is one Mataji in Houston, I forgot her name. I think Raseshwari Mataji would know
that, or maybe in the beginning it will have that.
In the book, like, to see in the first page.
Let me just go there,
and you can take the printout home if you like.
Like one per family.
Oh, this printout? Yeah.
Any printout usually we can.
It doesn't have. Just says
I forgot. Is it wrote in Dallas who started Bhakti Diksha program?
They have moved to Campbell now.
Raseshwari Mataji, I was hoping that you guys would go visit her in Campbell while I was away in India. but I guess like that
Yeah,
didn't
no,
happen.
we were planning to bring her, but it was flu season for us, so.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nitai Das, her son goes and plays
I
Mridanga
know,
from time
I
to
know,
time.
beautiful. Yeah, hours together he'll play. Yeah. So should we do the prasadam prayers?
Yes.
Will you do the prasadam prayers for us? Thank you.
Mahaprasade Govinde,
Mahaprasade Govinde,
Namo Brahmani Vaishnave,
Nam Brahmani Vaishnave,
Shalpa Punna Vritam Rajan,
Svalpa Punyavatam Rajan,
Vishwaso Naiva Jayate,
Vishwaso Naiva Jayate,
Sharira Vidyajal,
Kariya Vidyajal,
Jarendriya Taheka,
Yorindriya Tahika,
Jive Phele Vishaya Sagore,
Jive Phele Vishaya Sagore,
Dharmadhe Jivayati,
Dharmadhe Jivayati,
Lobhamaya Sudurmati,
Lobhamaya Sudurmati,
Takijata Kotina Samsare,
Takidita Katina Sansare,
Krishna Bara Dayamay,
Krishna Bara Doyamay,
Korivare Jivajay,
Korivare Jivajay,
Saprasad Annadila Bhai,
Swaprasad Annadilu Bhai,
Namritapal,
Anina Pritapal,
Radha Krishna Gunagao,
Radha Krishna Gurga,
Premidako Chaitanya Nitai,
Premidaku Chaitanya
Jai
Nitai,
Nimai Jai Nitai,
Jai Nimai Jai
Jai
Nitai,
Sri Krishna Chaitanya,
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda,
Prabhu
Sri
Nityananda,
Advaita Gadadhar,
Sri Advaita Gadadhar,
Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
It's Ekadashi today, there is actually no Anna, so I still sang that prayer. Some people will sing it.
I know, that's fine. So just a few things I wanted to mention again along the lines of Ekadashi. So you are also sponsoring the Ekadashi feast at our
Today,
temple
yes,
today?
yes.
Right, so Nishkam Mataji and Radha Krishna Prabhu are sponsoring the feast at our temple in ISKCON
It's my
Silicon
dad's
Valley.
fourth death anniversary.
Your dad's 4th death anniversary at ISKCON Silicon Valley on 1965 Latham Street. We'll have a nice class by Vaisheshika Prabhu at 3 o'clock there. So please come, those in the room as well as
Tulsi
those who are
Gabbard is
watching
also
us.
coming, I heard.
Yeah. So we'll have that. We'll follow that by a wonderful Aarti ceremony followed by prasadam. And then we have Shayan Aarti that starts at 7, ends at 7:15. And Tulsi Gabbard, most of you know her. She is also going to join us at 8 o'clock at the temple. So it's a long,
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Yeah, originally it said 4:30. They changed the time now.
They changed the time. I saw the email in the morning today. Yeah, so they changed it like that. And while they are heating up the Ekadasi prasadam for all of us, I'll request Banmali Prabhu if you could do a little kirtan for us, especially on your special drum.
What we like
Could you do a little kirtan for us?
a little
Kirtan?
Singing.
Singing.
a little singing.
Hare Krishna mantra.
How would I'm not sure of the format that you would like
Call
because
and response.
Just chant Hare Krishna.
just chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Any
You sing.
melody.
You
Any
sing,
melody?
you sing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your choice. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Please, Prashad. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will focus the camera.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, I'd like
That
to
was a
do
tune I
like-
just made up.
It's very nice tune, and we
This
love your
is-
instrument.
This is called a hoodoo. It's a African instrument, actually.
And he baked it.
Oh,
Yeah, he made
I
it.
Is that from
created
wood?
it. Well, I
Made from wood?
made from clay.
Oh, clay.
Yes. Ceramic.
Ceramic. So thank you so much, Vanmali Prabhu, for the wonderful tune and the nice kirtan, melodious. And I'd especially like to thank Jyoti Mataji, who has done the cooking with Kathy Mataji. Where's Kathy heading today? Kathy and Neeraj Prabhu for opening their house and hearts and allowing us to do Krishna Katha here.
Thank you so much to you, Mataji and Krish Prabhu, for coming here and doing this
આજે
amazing.
તો નીચે અગિયારસ નથી કરવાની હા કે પ્રસાદ લીધા વગર નહીં જવા દઉં.
For a moment, I will feign that I don't understand that.
ના understand નહીં, બધું understand થાય.
She can talk English, she can walk English, she can.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm saying, but I'm feeling that I don't understand Gujarati. Yeah,
Please come
so
to
she's,
Kencho.
Jyoti Mataji is leaving, right, to go to India? Or she's-
7th April.
7th April. Wow, wow.
6 months are over.
6 months over, so when are you coming back?
Whoa.
After a few months.
Yes, yeah, we have grown used to
એટલે
it.
અલંજર આવું છે ત્યારે આવી જશે અહીંયા.
So she's
Yes,
coming
whenever he
whenever
calls.
Krishna wants
Yeah.
to come.
You will come, yeah.
That is the right answer.
Okay.
નાલાની બહુ જલસા પડે છે એટલે બહુ યાદ આવે અમેરિકા.
Yeah. Thank you so much once again. Okay?
આ બધા વૈષ્ણવ લાભ કે આનંદ કેટલો થાય જો કેમ મલકે છે આજે એટલે આ તમને એમને નથી જવા દે તું કેમ એમને
For those of you who are watching us online, Jyoti Mataji is insisting that I should take some prasadam, although it's Kadashi from me. So I will definitely pack some and I'll take and order it. I'll break my fast tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is kind of good because tomorrow we have a very short window of breaking the fast, so it'll be good if I. Sometimes the Ekadashi,
Oh,
the
okay,
mood
okay,
for
that
baking
That's
it,
not the
yeah.
Paran.
Parana.
But then this is still Ekadashi Prasadam, so that
Yeah,
is-
but my fast
Oh,
will
okay.
break with
Natural,
Ekadashi.
yeah.
that is true.
Different standards.
Higher order.
Better prasadam than what I will make tomorrow. So.
It tastes better even tomorrow.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, those of you who are in the room and as well as those of you who are online. We'll stop the broadcast.
And thank you so much, Mataji, for being flexible. We couldn't do it on Friday, so thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Mataji, for inviting us.
Sorry for being late. We're here for you.